Now, on to teaching 8. There are 5 subject matters, Artha Panchaka, that a person eligible to surrender unto the Supreme Lord in order to attain liberation in the form of uninterrupted, unmotivated devotional service unto him should know. They are stated in this Ramayana. So there are 5 subject matters, Artha Panchaka. Okay, the 5 subject matters. Hold on. Yeah, okay, we already read that. The 5 subject matters to be known are Prapyasya Brahmano Rupam Praptuscha Pradyagatmanaha Prapt Upayam Phalam Praptes Tata Prapti Virodhicha Vadanti Sakala Veda Tetihasa Puranakaha Munayascha Mahatmano Veda Vedanga Paragaha. All the Vedas, Itihasas, Puranas, as well as the great souls, the sages well versed in the Vedas and the Vedangas, describe the nature of the Supreme Brahman, the individual soul, the means to attain him, the result of attaining him, and obstructions to attaining him. 5 matters. Artha Panchaka. Nature of Supreme Brahman, individual soul, the means to attain him, the result of attaining him, and obstructions to attaining him. This is Artha Panchaka. What is this Artha Panchaka? These 5 topics are so important that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur presented an abridged rendition of Artha Panchaka, a booklet on these topics by an Acharya of the Ramanuja Sampradaya named Pillai Lokacharya in Bengali, and elaborated on these same 5 topics in further detail in his very important book Chaitanya Shikshamrita 5.3. Interested readers can consult them to better understand these topics. They will also be dealt with in the Ramayana, of course. So, this Artha Panchaka, Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered it extremely important. So, 5 topics are nature of Brahman, spirit soul, what nature of the spirit soul, individual soul, then the means to attain him, then the result of attaining him, and obstructions. So these are 5 topics named Artha Panchaka. It should be understood that by bringing in a detailed description of Rama, the nature of the Supreme Being has been described here. The nature of the individual soul is brought out in incidents concerning Lakshmana and so on. The nature of the means to attain the Supreme Being is set out by describing the various aspects of the process of surrendering unto him. The nature of the result of attaining him, that is devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is brought out through narrations concerning Vibhishana and so on. And the nature of the obstructions to attaining him is described through incidents concerning Ravana and so on. So, nature of Brahman is described by understanding the nature of Lord Ramachandra. Nature of the individual soul is understood by analyzing the pastimes of Lakshmana. And the process of surrender is understood by the different aspects of surrender that we are discussing, how different personalities surrendered. We just discussed several aspects. So you understand that. Then the result of attaining the Supreme Lord is understood by analyzing the characteristics and pastimes of Vibhishana and others. And the obstructions in attaining the Supreme Lord, obstructions that will prevent us from attaining him, can be understood by analyzing Ravana and his characteristics and the Rakshasas along with him. So these are the 5 teaching. Now every surrendered soul has to know this. So what does this also mean? This also means that a surrendered soul, even if he's uneducated, should understand these things. It doesn't mean that just because one considers oneself to be, a simpleton, doesn't mean that one can think that one does not need to understand these things. If one doesn't understand these things, what is the risk? Mayavad is one possibility.
He harbors those things.
Sahajiya, becoming a Prakrita Sahajiya, is another possibility.
He's covered by the modes of material.
So he's covered by the modes of material nature. He becomes, he builds offenses. He becomes offensive in his behavior, either to the Supreme Lord or to the devotees. And he'll fall down back into the pool of material existence. So these are very, very important to understand if one has to stay a Vaishnava in his life. If one has to remain a devotee, if one wants to practice Krishna consciousness, what to speak of preaching. If one wants to practice Krishna consciousness, one has to understand these things. And if you understand those who are not following properly, you will see some defect in one of these five. One of these five they will not know properly. And therefore, this Artha Panchaka, Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered this to be extremely important. It's an aspect of the process of surrender also, because the surrendered soul has to know the Artha Panchaka. Okay, section 9. In order to point out that a person eligible to surrender unto the Lord in the above mentioned manner requires to surrender unto Him helplessly and exclusively, it is pointed out that the following are not worthy of being accepted as one's ultimate protectors and helpers. 1. Deities other than the Lord Himself, such as Brahma and Rudra, because they had blessed Ravana with boons, he was ultimately vanquished. Because though they had blessed Ravana with boons, he was ultimately vanquished. 2. One's fathers through a description of Dasharatha's life. 3. One's mothers and other superiors through incidents describing Kaikeyi and so on. 4. One's brothers, sons, and other dependents through incidents describing Vibhishana and Indrajit. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I was like really mind blown when I read these things. So, you have only Supreme Personality of Godhead is worthy of being surrendered unto. And to Him we can helplessly and exclusively surrender unto Him. Anybody else other than this is not worthy of doing that. The inclination of a conditioned soul, not forget conditioned soul, the inclination of any soul, the natural propensity is to take shelter, is to do service, is to serve. But, and the truth is that service is most ecstatic and most blissful when one surrenders helplessly and exclusively unto the person who is being served. Because one feels that protection, one feels that shelter. And in general, people surrender unto these 5 personalities here. They take shelter of these 5 personalities. Because even though one may be very strong and this and that, ultimately, if you don't have relationships, what is the use? What is the use? Most people are intelligent enough to understand that a selfish life is perhaps one of the most miserable, even if one may have lot of wealth, lot of followers, etc., etc. But if one doesn't have a relationship that one can confide in, that one can trust, one can take shelter of at any time, in any circumstance, especially when one is in danger, then what is the use? What is the use? One feels like an orphan, an anatha. So, people generally, they take shelter of deities other than the Lord Himself, such as Brahma and Rudra. But what is the use? What is the use? Ravana surrendered unto them, but they couldn't protect him. They were vanquished. So Ravana was vanquished. So they couldn't protect him. And because of that, Ravana was vanquished when Lord Rama wanted to kill him. And then one's father, you can take shelter of one's father, especially in India, it's very popular. Take shelter of your father. Father says you protect everything. I remember when I joined full time, one of the promises that my father forced me to give in front of in front of a deity of Lord Subramanya. He made me promise that if at all I ever leave Krishna consciousness, devotional service, I would not go to any other, path, organization, etc., but I would come to him for shelter. I would come to my father for shelter. And many times I think of that and I'm like, I should never leave Krishna consciousness because I don't want to take shelter of my father. It's like, I don't want to take shelter of my father because, what is that? Prahlad Maharaj says. No, not that. What's that verse? No. No. It's Narasimha. It comes. Huh? Balasineha Sharanau Pitarao Narasimha. Can someone pull that verse up? Nattasya Chadagam Uddavanti Majjato Naha. And then what's the last two lines?
No, that's the third one. Balasineha Sharanam Pitarao Narasimha. Nartasya Chadagam Uddavanti
Majjato Naha.
Majjato Nahu.
Now who? Huh?
7:19.
7:19.
9:19.
Tavad Vibho Tanubdam. 7:9.
19.
Balasine Sharanam Pitarao Nrsimha. Natasya Chadagam Udvanti Majjato Nauhu. Taptasya Tat Pratividhir Ya Ihanja Sheshtas. Tavad Vibho Tanubridham Tadupekshitanam. My Lord Narasimhadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for by you, cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child. A physician in medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient. And a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. So, and this is very, very amazing because Prahlad Maharaj was not protected by his father. Balasineha Sharanam Pitarao Nrsimha. So that what protection? Pitarao doesn't mean two fathers. Means because it's used in a dual sense. Pitaraha, Pitarao, Pitaraha. So you have many fathers, but in this case, Pitarao, Prabhupada translates as father and mother. Means parents. Of course, one can take the other example that there are other people that one may consider as a father, such as the elder brother is considered to be a father. The bull is considered to be one's father, etc., etc., etc. There are other personalities. Just like you have mothers, you have fathers also. Like that in Vedic culture. The cow, the earth is all mother, So, and physician. Physician also cannot protect. The medicine cannot protect. What is the use? So, here, one's father, through a description of Dasharatha's life, the Dasharatha could not do what?
Protect him.
He could not protect Rama from going from Kaikeyi's
Curse.
not curse, but Kaikeyi's, punishment. Kaikeyi's desire to banish him to the forest. So Dasharatha could not protect. He was obliged. Therefore, why? Because he had to follow Dharma. Now Supreme Personality got it. He can break everything. Therefore, he is the only one who can protect. Supreme Personality got it. May give a vow to somebody, but he can break it. What is the example?
This Bhishma.
Bhishma Dev in the Mahabharata. Krishna said, I'll not lift any weapon. He picks up a chariot wheel and uses it as a weapon. About to kill Bhishma. So he broke his vow. He broke his vow to Duryodhana. He didn't care. He didn't care about that. So, one's father. 3. One's mothers and other superiors through incidents describing Kaikeyi and so on. So Kaikeyi is actually Lord Rama's mother. Even though stepmother, but practically, until that pastime happened, practically, Lord Rama was treated with equal affection by Kaikeyi, Kausalya and Sumitra. There was no difference. But somehow, Kaikeyi had been poisoned. So much so that she turned against her own son, Lord Rama. And this, unfortunately, is the nature of the material world. That, through bad association, a mother can turn against her own child. It's kind of unimaginable. But it's happening even today. How? Abortion. Through bad association, a natural nature, the nature of a woman is the moment she has she's carrying a child in her womb, she starts to develop affection. It is part of her body. Would you just cut your arm off for no reason? But here they're cutting a part of their body and killing it. The mother's affection to the child is supposed to be as strong as a person's affection to any other part of their body. But bad association can make one go crazy. Through bad association, people can also inflict harm upon themselves. But why would anybody do that? It's considered to be a mental, you're psychologically unstable if you inflict pain upon yourself. And that's exactly what abortion is. But bad association can do that. Intoxication can do that. But specifically in this case, bad association. It's really, really sad. Yeah. So, anyways. So then, and 4, one's brothers, sons, one's brothers, sons, and other dependents through incidents describing Vibhishana and Indrajit. So Vibhishana abandoned Ravana. Indrajit is Ravana's son. But what could he do? What could he do? He couldn't do anything. He had big words. But ultimately Indrajit was killed. Ravana had so many sons who were killed. One was killed actually by Hanuman himself in the beginning. So what are these? So one cannot surrender to these kind of personalities. And historically people do that. They surrender to their son, their mother, and Prahlad Maharaj goes further. He says physicians, others. So many people that people surrender unto. Or things. Prahlad Maharaj is saying people surrender unto things, which is really stupid. It's the worst kind of surrender. But people surrender to things, and Prahlad Maharaj is giving the example of surrendering to a boat. How can a boat save a drowning man? How can a thing save you? You need a person to lift you up. A boat can't do anything. You're drowning. Somebody has to lift you onto the boat. The boat itself is not going to do anything. And that's why people surrender unto things. So in this way, only the Supreme Lord is deserving of exclusive and helpless surrender. Okay, teaching number 10. Such a person, eligible to surrender unto the Lord in the above manner, requires a bona fide Acharya to help him attain proper knowledge concerning the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will be shown through a description of the life of Hanuman. We will describe this in Canto 5, Sundarakanda.
5.
Sundarakanda. He's only done three cantos so far. So as I mentioned earlier, Hanuman is compared to Acharya. He is compared to spiritual master, and a person who wants to surrender unto the Supreme Lord requires that bona fide Acharya. Right? In this case, how is the Sundarakanda compared to how can you understand from the pastime of Sundarakanda Hanuman's nature to be Hanuman's quality of being a spiritual master from the pastime of Sundarakanda alone?
Oh, Sugriva? No.
Sugriva, no. That's in Yuddhakanda. Which one?
He's a mediator between Sugriva and Rama.
That's in Kishkindakanda. Yes. How Sita? Yeah.
This is the message.
Huh?
Here's the message.
Yes, but
So
so what is Sita Devi and what is Hanuman? So if Hanuman is spiritual master, so look, there are a couple of personalities in Sundarakanda. Okay, what are the personalities in Sundarakanda? You have Hanuman, you have Sita. Who else do you have? You have Ravana. Correct? These are the three main personalities in Sundarakanda. Right? Lord Rama is there also, and the message is going back to Rama. Lakshmana not really so much. Okay, Sundarakanda is basically these four personalities. So Rama sends Hanuman to search out Sita, who is being oppressed by Ravana. This is And so what happens? Hanuman meets Sita, terrifies Ravana, subdues Ravana, and carries the message back to Rama, eventually causing
them to meet.
Lord Rama and Sita to be rescued. Without Hanuman visiting Lanka, Sita could have not been rescued. Correct? So if in this picture Hanuman is spiritual master, who is who?
Nikunjayana Rathikali said, that he's making arrangements for the Supreme Lord to meet his time.
No.
No.
No, that's not how it's done. You're thinking Gaudiya Laishnav. I mean, that's okay. That might be, but that's not in this particular case. We're talking about surrender and things like that. So we haven't gone to that level yet. We're talking of spiritual master. So what does spiritual master do? Who brings who? You mean who? Huh? Conditioned soul to Krishna. So if Hanuman is spiritual master, who is who?
Sita is supposed to be represent the Jiva?
Correct. Sita is the representative of the Jiva, of the conditioned living entity in this particular case. Okay, because conditioned living entity is also Prakriti, dependent on the Supreme Lord. So, Sita Devi is representing the conditioned soul here. She's not a conditioned soul, of course, we know that. But she's representing the conditioned soul. Okay, then what about Ravana? What about Rama?
Rama is the Supreme.
Rama is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ravana is obstruction. What do you mean by obstruction? Yes. Ravana represents all the anarthas of the living entity. Kama, Krodha, Loha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, and all of their associates. The living entity who is represented by Sita Devi is trapped in the fortress of Lanka, in the abode of sense enjoyment. And who are the actual enjoyers in that abode of sense enjoyment? Not the conditioned living entity. The conditioned living entity is suffering. Persons like Ravana, the enemies of the Supreme Lord, are using the conditioned living entity and have trapped that conditioned living entity in an attempt. These desires, the mind and the senses. So Ravana is mind and senses, like this. That the mind, the truth is the conditioned living entity cannot enjoy without the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But this mind and senses think that it is possible to enjoy this, separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They represent all those unholy desires that give all these wrong philosophies and wrong concepts and trap the conditioned soul there. Hanuman is the bona fide Acharya who, not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who enters into that fortress, reaches that conditioned soul, gives that conditioned soul hope, and conveys that and then evokes that sincerity out of that conditioned soul and carries that back to the Supreme Lord, who then comes and rescues the living entity from the material fortress of sense enjoyment, from the material world, basically. So this is further described later in the end.
Is described?
Yes, I'm speaking from the Ramayana Mahotsav Prabhu. So, okay. Anyways, if you want to see it.
No.
Lanka refers to the body. Ravana and Kumbhakarna represent the egoistic sense of I and mine respectively. Indrajit and others represent lust, anger, and so on. Vibhishana represents intelligence. Sita, imprisoned in Lanka, represents the conditioned living entity. That living entity attains knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through Hanuman representing the bona fide Acharya. The Supreme Lord himself destroys that body and rescues the living entity imprisoned within that city. This will be elaborated later on. Okay? So this is amazing actually, how Acharyas, remember, It doesn't mean that when something is being represented, it doesn't mean that that is a fault. It is the right conclusion, because Arjuna may be representing conditioned living entity, but he is not a conditioned living entity himself. So there's nothing wrong in these kind of comparisons. Acharyas are explaining these things, and therefore they are bona fide. Section 11. A person who is eligible to surrender unto the Lord in the above manner should engage in devotional service in full surrender on a daily basis and wait for the time his body falls dead. Prayena krita krityastu mrityor udvijate janaha. Krita kritya pratikshante mrityum priyam ivatithim. Generally, those who have not perfected their existence are terrified of their death. Those who have perfected their existence should wait until their death as if waiting for a dear guest. Mahabharata, Ashwamedha Parva. Commentary. This teaching has been very beautifully explicated by Srila Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion as follows. In the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 8, it is said, what verse is that? 10, 14, 8. Tattenu kampam susamikshmano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vabubhir vidatan namaste jivetayo mukti sapade daya samukti pade sadaya bha. My dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. This statement of Srimad Bhagavatam should be the guide of all devotees. This is Prabhupada saying this. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences, because material existence means continued suffering or enjoying of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in this material world. A devotee who is not perfectly free from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. When such impediments arise, he should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. That is the only solace. If a devotee passes his days in that spirit, it is certain that he is going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. The exact word used in this verse is Dayabhak. Dayabhak refers to a son's becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the father. In a similar way, a pure devotee who is prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna conscious duties becomes lawfully qualified to enter into the transcendental abode. So it's such a nice example here that if a devotee simply becomes patient, if he just becomes patient and performs his activities in Krishna consciousness with full sincerity and diligence, he becomes the lawful inheritor. Dayabhak, he becomes lawfully qualified to enter the spiritual world, to enter Krishna's abode. He will enter. He will enter. And therefore, this example that we just read, this is conveyed through a description of Sita's determination to be reunited with Lord Rama despite formidable adversities. Saraistu sankulam kritva lankam parabalardhanaha mam nayed yadi kakutsthas tattasya sadrisham bhavet. If Kakutstha, the destroyer of his opponent's armies, would overwhelm Lanka with his arrows and take me with him, that would be like him. So then the paragraph that I just read, Lanka refers to the body, Ravana and Kumbhakarna represent the egoistic sense of I and mind respectively, Indrajit and others represent lust, anger and so on. Vibhishana represents intelligence. Sita imprisoned in Lanka represents the conditioned living entity, and that living entity attains knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through Hanuman representing the bona fide Acharya. The Supreme Lord himself destroys that body and rescues the living entity imprisoned within that city. This will be elaborated later on. So, the living entity is trapped within the body. And in the body, we have Ravana and Kumbhakarna, which represents Aham Mameti, I and mine. Indrachit and others represent lust, anger, and so on. So we have all of these. We're living there. Just Sita Devi was trapped. And what is this? And Ravana, when was he approaching Sita?
The spiritual husband was not there.
No. Yes, but in Lanka, when was he approaching?
Mason was a demon Mason.
When? What do you mean?
When?
What time?
Yeah.
In the morning
He was approaching him in the morning, and how frequently? Every day. Every day in the morning, as soon as you wake up, the Aham Mamedi Bhav comes up in the heart. I and mine. As soon as you wake up, as soon as in the morning, the first thing in the morning, immediately this egoistic mind comes, just like Ravana comes. But what does Sita do? Chi, get away. You rascal Ravana. You think I would ever be attracted to you? You think I would ever be attracted to a desire to enjoy you? You think I would be ever attracted to a desire to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord, to be enjoyed by anybody else other than the Supreme Lord? And she shoos Ravana away. And how do we shoo that? By waking up in the morning program, chanting our rounds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By doing that, then one shoos away this egoistic I and mine. No, I am Supreme Lord servant. First thing, as soon as we get up, first thing we do, we come for Mangalarti. But other conditioned living entities, as soon as they wake up, immediately they are caught by this I and mind. When they are, why? Because when you are sleeping, you don't really know who you are. Whatever damn thing is happening, you forgot about your wife, you forgot about your kids, forgot about your property, your wealth, everything. Whatever you're doing, something, some crazy thing you might be doing. You don't remember all these things. As soon as you wake up, everything comes back. Everything comes back. Oh, this is me. This is who I am. Everything comes. And Vibhishana represents the intelligence. So Vibhishana is arguing, fighting against Ravana. Bold. Why? Because the intelligence has to have the guts to stand up against
the mind.
This I and mind, this egoistic sense. The intelligence has to have some guts to stand against the mind. But the intelligence is like this puny puppy. Some people have these dogs, they're useless dogs. They're completely useless. They just simply whine and cry. They're so useless. You slap the person, they whine. It's like, you give that one more slap also.
No, seriously.
So what's the use of those kind of dogs? It can't even stand up to the master. There's a video, actually, that is, things come up online. So there's this video of, there's all these protesters going and whatever they're doing, and so one person is having his dog, and whatever he did, something, I don't know what he did, but he's in the protest and the police are all pouncing on him, and they're ripping the dog away, and this dog is crying. I'm like, what the heck? You won't bite anything? It's like, what kind of a you're a dog. It's like, and the master is getting like, well, the master said, oh my dog. The master is saving the dog. The dog is not saving the master. It's like upside down. What's the use of a dog like that? The dog is crying. And people go, poor dog. Oh, the poor dog. Poor dog.
Useless dog.
At least, if you look at old, poems and descriptions and all, the dog is like, it protects the master. The dog even dies for the master, and is generally ferocious, protects the property, and this and that. But this dog is even useless dog, So if the intelligence is like that in front of the mind, what's the use? Simply whining. So that kind of intelligence is useless. But Vibhishana, at the cost of being chastised, he stood up. He stood up to Ravana. That is intelligence. That's the kind of intelligence that one requires. So then, Sita as imprisoned in Lanka represents the conditioned living entity. Now, Hanuman comes, he gives message of hope, but immediately Sita is not rescued. And what does Hanuman do to convince the living entity, to convince Sita Devi that, see, Sita is like, how will Rama come? How will he cross? Okay, you are one monkey, somehow you jumped. Somehow you came here. How is everybody else going to come? How is Rama going to come? Do you know how powerful Ravana is? Do you know how big the fortress is here? Then Hanuman says, okay, I'll show you. So then, the spiritual master, by engaging the living entity in devotional service, shows him the power of the Supreme Lord. And the living entity feels that power. He feels the potency of the Supreme Lord. You know? And spiritual master convinces the living entity that if just by associating with me and just by following my instructions, you have gained so much potency and power. Imagine how our Master, Supreme Lord, imagine our Master, imagine that Supreme Lord, the creator of the whole universe, that Supreme Absolute Truth, who loves us, who follows you life after life after life and is situated within your heart. How much more powerful he must be. How greatly compassionate he must be. So, and what does Hanuman do as the spiritual master? He destroys, he kills so many enemies. He wipes out so many of those enemies, just like Hanuman wiped out so many enemies, terrified Ravana, terrified the mind. Now the mind is scared of the spiritual master. So he puts some fear. And and the conditioned living entity is waiting there. But still the conditioned living entity, is waiting. Is waiting because still this Ravana rascal everywhere is still torturing. After the Hanuman left, it's not that Ravana never came and saw Sita until Rama came. He must have been going there. He must have been going there every single day torturing. So the conditioned living entity is patient. Not that the conditioned living entity is thinking, if Rama doesn't show up right now at this very instance and free me and make me a pure devotee right now, I won't practice Krishna consciousness. Nor does he lose faith. So Sita Devi is waiting for, patiently for that day and then Supreme Lord himself destroys that body and rescues the living entity imprisoned within that city. So poetic, so wonderful, such a beautiful scene, This will be elaborated later on. Okay, so we have from section 12 to 18 another, so including 12, it will be another 7 teachings of the Ramayana, which I expect to finish in the next class. Because the sections start to become a little smaller. Hopefully, next class, we'll try to finish it in the next class. Okay, so I'll stop here. Any questions or comments? Yes, Mohan sir.
Veda based on phone.
Veda based on my iPad.
Yeah. You can pull up the Manas Sutra verse and connect it. You can read the translation.
The translation? Oh, he's going to give you the mic.
So there's this beautiful verse,
Amazing.
Abandon your residence in my mind, which is now the home of Lord Mukunda's lotus feet. So this is very precisely what, and you can look at verse number 7. Is that 18?
Mm.
You can read it out. The mic is not working. Everything's fine.
No, people can hear you.
I see. I'm asking the personality of God and I know alone.
Why is that not working?
It's working.
What do you mean? It's all falling apart. I need like 4 hands to hold this mic. I don't know. Vishnu, I don't know. She's not waiting. One thing works, other thing doesn't.
Manifest their form.
Yeah. Our master Narayana the personality of God alone rules the three worlds. One can say in meditation who happily shares his present domain is manifested. Yet still we beg service on some minor laws of few villages, some lowly men. I was thinking this, it's very appropriate for like trying to seek shelter from your father or mothers or brothers or like, some other demigod, what's the use, And do you have Guru Maharaj's quote that he sent yesterday, Prabhupada quoted Guru Maharaj sent out?
I mean,
And I can read it out if you don't mind.
it's going to take time to load right now. Because it doesn't.
Anyway, all right. So,
Guru Maharaj is-
email
this
it.
one, if you're even unable to follow.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah, I can't see so clearly from there.
Yeah.
You can read it out.
You did a good job here.
Why don't you read?
In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness.
And that's exactly what you're talking about just now. Coming in, giving hope. So I had a question. Could you like explain more like the differences between bona fide representations? Like the one which we just read, which just now, and then like there's bogus representations like Gandhi, like the
Oh, yeah.
all that.
Well, bona fide representations are those that are quoted by the acharyas, and they have to align with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and the examples that are given should not contradict the philosophy. If they contradict the philosophy, then then it's a problem. The point is, for instance, the representation of Kurukshetra as a body, the Pancha Pandavas being, five senses, whatever, and all this kind of thing. The problem is not so much the analogy itself. The problem more is the fact that they say it's only an analogy and it's not real. The acharyas don't say that the Ramayana, if now somebody uses this example and says, well, that's why, this Ramayana is all folk tale. It's just representing something. For instance, just completely making it equal in all respects to a story like King Puranjana's, which is actually fictional. But this is not a fictional story. They're all real personalities. But these people, they use these analogies and then say that none of them actually exist. That neither Krishna exists, nor does all this kind of crazy things exist. Neither is the Mahabharata actually a fact. Just an analogy. And that's where the problem is, primarily. But then, of course, analogies have to align with the philosophy. Examples should align with the philosophy. You can give examples for philosophy, but you cannot derive philosophy from examples.
Kamsa and Ravana, pretty much this feminist society that's come about is basically that, like they're killing children, innocent children within the womb, and it's like they hate the Krishna consciousness movement like anything.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's like that's kind of the situation in society right now. It's like they're present, and so it like requires a lot of like protection of Krishna consciousness from those few devotees to really take care of it, to push it on. It's that analogy can be applied now too. I was just thinking that when you're talking about the feminists and all of the abortion and things like that. It's so terrible. These people are so demoniac. They have no.
It's actually mutilation.
It's like
Well, it is.
how like
Cutting a part of your body.
like
You see, when something comes out of your body naturally, that's not considered mutilation. When the baby comes out of the body naturally, it's not mutilated. When you actually cut something in your body, that's mutilated. So, about basically mutilation.
then you can understand like the demoniac, like the mentality, because it's like a mother with a child, and Prabhupada says that that's the closest thing to love,
Yeah.
that one can experience, and they're able to just kind of just like, so how do they have that ability to do that?
See, the body produces so many types of opulences, and people are attached to those things. What they consider to be opulences, such as hair. You produce hair out of the body, and people are so interested in decorating their hair and taking care of their hair. What is the hair? It's produced from the body. But the living entity sees that as something that's useful. Not body produces other unwanted things, but the wanted things, at least from the conditioned living entity's perspective. Other things are, say, one's voice, one's ability to sing or whatever, different talents, being able to be dexterous with one's hands, etc. So many things that one can do, that the body allows one to do. Now, here's a woman who's carried a child for how many months? 9, 10? 9 months. So 9 months, the child grows in the body for 9 months and then comes out and is a full-fledged, independent living entity of its own. The body cannot produce anything equal to that of a child. Nothing is equal to that of a child. Whatever you may call, the child is a full-fledged, independent person. Such an amazing thing. It's the most amazing thing, actually. For every child that's born, that's actually a miracle. Because it's like, how is this amazing thing? That that's therefore Prabhupada said, these rascal people, the machine, it cannot even reproduce itself. But here, the mother and father, they come together and a child is produced. Amazing. The whole process, a completely independent living entity who is also capable of producing more children himself. Such a masterpiece the woman is able to create from her own body, and that they wanted to. The civilization is crazy. It's completely crazy. They talk about rights, my body, my body. So why don't you cut your damn hand off? Why is that considered a problem? Why is that considered a problem? There's no logic, there's no reasoning. People have gone completely crazy.
Impediment to this sense. They make it.
No, that's the point.
People clear about that too. It's like it's gonna happen my ability to destroy. So
that's the point. That's the point. I mean, and people do all kinds of crazy things now to their body, thinking that it's an impediment, destroying their own body. So this is okay. Example: gender change operation is an impediment to my sense gratification.
What?
I mutilate myself and kill the ability of myself to reproduce with the greatest pleasure in material life is sex. And you destroy it. You destroy it. You have no ability to have sex anymore in your life. What kind of a mad person are you? Because you thought it was an impediment to your sense gratification. Because they actually don't, because they're not cultured, they're not intelligent. Those who are cultured, those who are pious can intelligent. But through the child, the level of sense gratification I can have is a lot greater than this momentary sex. It's a fact. It's a fact. That yesterday, our god sister came with,
Her children.
her children. She came with her son and her daughter-in-law. So the parents both came. So she's our god sister, but the son is disciple of Hanumat Preshak Maharaj. Actually, she has 2 sons. Both are disciples of Hanumat Preshak Maharaj, I think. And her daughter-in-law is also a devotee. And, she's introducing her to Maharaj and this and that. And she says, now, my daughter-in-law is in the family way. What does that mean?
We're going to have a kid.
It means that they're going to have a child. She's now in the family way. Such a nice cultured way of saying this. But the point is that, why is she happy? Because there is some pleasure that she's going to get a grandchild. And the family is going to continue. No conception, even the idea of sense gratification has gone down so low. Animals take pleasure in having children.
And protecting them.
and protecting them. Humans have lost the ability to understand that. So the level of insanity in society right now is so dangerously high. I mean, what do you expect? Except for these people to go and kill themselves after slaughtering so many animals and killing themselves in war, fighting, protesting, and what do you expect? Nothing. You cannot expect anything else. So much work.
These people, they interviewed and they asked them, like, hey, so, like, is it okay for a 12-year-old kid to get a tattoo? And they say no, they can't, they should not get a tattoo because it basically leaves like a lifelong impression on the body. It's not like a good thing. They should wait for some time. Then, is it okay for 12-year-old kids to have puberty blockers and change their sex? Oh, yes, it's okay. Are you insane? So that doesn't leave a permanent impression on your body.
The greatest pleasure, I still can't wrap my head around. The greatest pleasure that civilization after civilization has sought to seek. This civilization is destroying that. It's a level of insanity that's just I don't know seen.
When we're at university now, we're gonna be facing this a lot. As time goes on, and we're seeing it at universities. I mean, Vietnam, Christian group, Christian group. I was arguing with this guy, and he's like, "Well, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, and they feel as long as they're happy, and now people are cutting their own legs off."
What?
Because they think they're they're handicapped. They feel they're handicapped.
No.
There was one case, one case,
I did not believe it.
one case in North Carolina, they felt they were handicapped, so they cut their legs off. So then I asked him, "What about that? Is that okay or not?" He's like, "No, that's not okay."
People are
And it's like, we have no logic and reason.
We have with our duty to intelligently but forcefully and strongly say these things and preach these things. One should not shy away from this. If people are dumb with the philosophy and principle, they want to spread this crap. They want to normalize these things, and they are unashamed of this. We have the real thing. How much more bold should we be?
This guy was telling me that they're convinced that society is better.
Yeah,
Really?
He is like, you have to read this book because your perspective is. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like
not perspective.
It's like divorces are 60%, the children are messed up, depression is higher than ever, and you're saying that it's just the perspective. It's like these people are so crazy.
Yeah,
they're convinced.
they're really well, always there was child abuse. Always there was.
Yeah.
And all what?
Always all gay people. You're all gay people.
Masters are also
They
gay.
find,
Mind.
they find some vague example of two people committing suicide 500 years ago and they feel
Suicide is
society.
They'll also say, oh, because there was back then because it's just because it was repressed.
They were afraid to bring it.
They were afraid to bring it out,
Oppressed.
and then the women were also abused, but they were afraid to bring it out. The households are not actually happy. It's like, bro.
Yeah, I mean, you can say anything you want. Actually, it was not like that.
And then they'll have some stupid study that says something like that. And it's like, but growing up in the culture and we're seeing how
Yeah, it's really ridiculous.
villages and the societies that have existed for hundreds of years, how happily they live. It's like,
Which is why it's important to establish a living example, which is why Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish, Varnashram farm communities. To demonstrate what's in the books. Because then when you demonstrate something, how are you going to argue against that? How are you going to argue against that? How can you talk against what's real? It's so in front of your freaking eyes. So in that regard, that's the other 50%. Huge. Left for us to do so much. Okay. Oh wow, so many people. Okay, yeah. But yeah,
Very good. So in as far as this analogy with the Ravana Ahamamiti thing, so like Ravana was like cursed that he couldn't like rape like any women or else he would die.
right.
Or else like theoretically he would have just like raped Sita.
Correct.
So like it's you know, it seems like in our case, like we're getting like raped by like our auntie like every day. So like, but like she was like protected in that way because that like Ravana was cursed. But is our Ravana also like cursed, or are we like like willingly submitting to it?
No, the analogy should be understood in the fact that what is that?
What is still the English?
You know, what is this? The senses, the mind, the intelligence.
Indriyani Paranya.
Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manah manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. So here in this particular example, we're going to take saha as the living entity. That the living entity is always superior to the mind and intelligence. Always. And therefore, if the living entity wants to avoid the mind, he can. This is always our philosophy. Then the mind is not, the mind can seem more powerful. Again, what is that famous verse that the mind is very powerful?
God like power of the mind.
But no, but therefore, Guru Hare Charano Pasanastro. What is the verse? Bhratrivya enam tadadabra viryam upekshaya dedidam apramattaha. That this mind is, it's very, very dangerous mind, but Guru Hare's Charanopasanastra, by wielding the weapons of Hari's lotus feet and Guru's lotus feet, Jahi Vyalikam Swayam Atma motion, destroy, kill this enemy of the eternal enemy of the soul. So the mind, Sita Devi was helpless. Yes, Ravana didn't direct, but Sita Devi was practically helpless. Until Hanuman came to her, she felt completely hopeless. You see, when you're saying the mind tries to take possession of the soul, but ultimately the soul is always above the mind. This is the point that has to be very, very clearly understood. That it may seem that the mind may anytime take control of the soul, but the soul is always, being spiritual in nature, it is always superior to that of the material mind. It is always superior. When the spiritual master comes, the living entity gets that hope. Yes, actually I can take, there is some hope that from getting myself relieved from this crazy mind. Until that point of time, he practically feels hopeless. Why does he feel hopeful? Kuro Haresh Charano Pasanastra.
What about the fact that like Ravana, like he gave like a specific time where he's like, okay, like if you know, I'll wait until then, but at this time, I think it was like a year or something, maybe more.
Yeah.
After 1 year, I'm gonna like chill right now, but after 1 year, then I'm gonna like devour you.
He said he's going to eat you, not rape her. But
Oh.
he said, I'm going to cut you up and eat you. I'm going to eat you up. Whatever. I mean, you know.
Analogies go so far.
The analogy, but the point is that the living entity is at the time of death. Rama coming and rescuing Sita is considered the time of death. And, you know, one can consider that if one does not gain shelter of the Supreme Lord by the time of death, then it's like Ravana destroying that body, destroying that living entity. But then the living entity doesn't get rescued by Rama. It goes with that Ravana to another city, you know. So that's how, you know, he just takes possession. But still, never can Ravana actually. Ravana says he will devour Sita, but he can't do it. He can never do it. Sita Devi is not material. How can he cut her? How can he kill her? You know. But hold on. And then, huh?
This and that. So
What this and that?
this and that, both.
This example, this analogy is really amazing, and especially the example of Jiva being dependent on the Lord, like Sita Devi represented Jiva and being hopeful that the Lord's mercy will come. And I was reading in your 11th canto, the Maharaj maybe the Nine Yogendras, and this one thing I read kind of reminded me of the Soul Seminar. And one of the Yogendras was making the point that when you surrender unto the Lord, three things happen. That you immediately experience devotion, like pleasure from devotion. You immediately experience like a protection of the Lord and detachment. Okay,
yeah.
right? I was thinking like that Christian is so kind that even like a neophyte that once they surrender to the Lord, what keeps them going and hopeful, like they experience that devotion of being the protection of the Lord.
Yeah.
Even though the Lord may not directly be.
Yeah. Hanuman does all of that, doesn't he? He gives pleasure to Sita Devi by bringing her news that Rama is coming. He's coming. He cares about you. He still loves you. He's waiting there. So living and thinking, wow, Supreme Lord, there is such a person, and Supreme Lord actually cares about me. He still cares about me. He still wants me. And he's hopeful. So he becomes hopeful. Then Sita Devi also becomes, she feels the protection of Lord Rama. How? Because Hanuman himself destroys so many of Ravana's armies and kills his sons also.
Wow.
And sets the whole city of Lanka on fire. You know? So in this way, Sita Devi feels that protection. She feels that protection of Lord Rama.
And for like the detachment, what would you say?
And detachment is very simple. That because of feeling hopeful, you know, she becomes stronger in her ability to keep away from Ravana and his servants and everything. So she becomes extremely hopeful of that. Ravana doesn't stop his torture of Sita. You just don't hear much about it. But that's still going on. Every day that's going on. But now she has the hope. So she's more detached now. Anything else? Okay, Mataji. Anything in the Mataji? No, they don't have anything. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, they don't have anything. You have something?
No, I think if when Sita asked Hanuman, how will you do all this and he said, actually I'm like the most humble servant here. They usually for small things like this, for excursions like this, they send like the most insignificant servant.
Yeah.
Actually, there's so many monkeys greater than me, and they
Sugriva,
Angada. He glorifies everyone.
Suvida,
Three other people change it to the max.
Jambavan,
Yeah. So many Mainda, Divida.
Mainda, yeah.
So many monkeys are there. They are way more powerful than me. I'm just like some menial servant that they sent in the front, in first, just to like go analyze and see. So he says that it's very amazing.
Yes.
And the poem that he sings.
That's like our acharyas glorifying the predecessor acharyas. Oh, who am I? Just be, Prabhupada, see the six Goswamis, see these acharyas, so much more powerful, so powerful. What am I? When you start hearing their instructions, when you start implementing, you hear the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, read the songs of Narottam Das Thakur. My God, imagine how much spiritual potency you get.
Ihara Paramahamsa Gorangir Nijapamsa Tadera Charima. Ami Seba Udasin, he says that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we'll just cover section 13 also. Okay.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Only the place where the Supreme Lord is personally present in his deity form, etc., is fit to be resided in by such a person eligible to surrender unto him, as mentioned above. This is described to the incident describing the residence of Koshala. This cardinal teaching is also one of the cardinal teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mathura Mandale Sthitihi. One should reside in Vrindavan, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 22:132. Srila Prabhupada has commented, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Sri Gaura Mandala Bhumi, Jeva Jane Chintamani, Tara Hoi Braja Bhumi. One who understands the transcendental nature of Navadvip and the surrounding area where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enacted his pastimes always resides in Vrindavan. Similarly, living in Jagannath Puri is as good as living in Vrindavan. The conclusion is that in Navadvip Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham and Vrindavan Dham are identical. However, if one goes to Mathura Mandala Bhumi for sense gratification or to make a livelihood, he commits an offense and is condemned. Whoever does so must be penalized in his next life by becoming a hog or monkey in Vrindavan Dham. After taking such a body, the offender is liberated in the next life. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that residing in Vrindavan with a view to enjoy sense gratification surely leads to a so-called devotee to the lower species.
Oh Lord.
And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented in this regard that this also includes other pastimes parts of the Lord. So to live in a place where the Lord has personally manifested himself to the conditioned souls is extremely important for those who are serious about attaining pure devotional service to Lord Krishna, who is substantially non-different from his other Vishnu forms as Rama, Nrsimha, and so on. So we had discussed this in the second teaching about how living in the territory of the Supreme Lord considers one to be surrendered. So the residents of Koshala, meaning that at the end of Lord Rama's pastimes, Lord Rama took all the residents of Koshala, the entire kingdom of Ayodhya, back home, back to Godhead with him in the eternal abode of Ayodhya in the spiritual world. So in this way, one should live in such a place, and if one lives in such a place, just as Rama liberated the residents of Koshala, one will also get liberated. So one should live near, and specifically see, because we are not living in holy places like Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan or Mayapur, one is in Vrindavan as much as one takes advantage of the association in the temple, as much as one considers the temple to be non-different from Vrindavan and creates that atmosphere here. And by doing that, by living around the temple, associating with devotees, following the program, one will also guarantee to go back to God, just as the residents of Ayodhya went back to God by Lord Rama's mercy. So this is teaching number 13. So I'll end here. Thank you very much. Shri Valmiki Ramayana ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Acha Kripa Samvedyo, Namo Namah.